Hey folks, I hope you're enjoying the newly launched Mystic Trial mode. While the mechanics are fairly straightforward, I think this mode is a big deal for free-to-play players for reasons that aren't immediately apparent. In this video, I'll walk you through the Mystic Trial's fundamentals, share my thoughts on the free-to-play investment story everyone's missing, and leave you with some quick tips to outcompete other players with this game mode. First, the basics. This is not an event, but rather a permanent feature that unlocks when you reach Town Center level 19. It comes with 6 dungeons to clear, some of which you might have to wait for your server to grow in age to unlock, such as the Pet Focus Tower. Different dungeons are active on different days of the week, and you have 5 challenges per day to clear as far as you possibly can. You only consume a challenge if you lose the stage. For dungeons that are open for 2 days, you will get 5 separate attempts for each of those 2 days, so be sure to use them on both. And the more stages you clear, you will get a permanent weekly income of a new Mystic Crystal currency, as well as chests with a variety of rewards. These are called raid rewards, and every time a dungeon where you've cleared some progress becomes available again, you are free to instantly retrieve them. It's also important to note that these battles are expedition battles, not conquest battles, despite the visual simulation. This means only expedition stats, abilities, and rules apply. You'll also get expedition battle reports you can peruse after each battle to help you better prepare. For learning how to read a battle report like an expert, check out my link to that video below in the description. And that's basically it for the fundamentals. Super easy to learn, but difficult to master. Fortunately, I'm here to help you with the latter part. Each of the 6 dungeons has a different rule set associated with it, which I'll go through very briefly. The Colosseum is on Mondays and Tuesdays, and it allows you to use heroes and their gear, including exclusive gear. While the description does not say hero abilities, they are indeed active as shown in the battle report, along with the built-in troop abilities. However, please note that the abilities that come from hero exclusive gear do not apply. This is a consequence of the way battles have been designed. You are never on defense, so defensive abilities will not activate. And your attacks are all sequential solo battles, even when you send multiple marches to a battle. So this means the offensive abilities will not trigger since they are not rallies. And you can see they do not appear in the special bonuses section of the battle report. Lastly, trying to trigger your pet buffs or battle consumables to help with this mode will have no effect. I tested it so you don't have to. The Forest of Life is on Wednesday and Thursday. Here you send in troops without any heroes, and they only receive stats from your pet stats, both from pet levels and from pet taming marks. Additionally, combat pet abilities do apply here, and, like in normal battles, these go in as special buffs which have a multiplicative component to your stats. And importantly, you do not have to activate your pet abilities for them to apply here, and activating them again will not apply any additional bonus on top of the automatic ones. Crystal Cave is also open for the same Wednesday and Thursday time frame, but in this dungeon, only the stats of your Governor Charms applied to troops, nothing else. This one's pretty straightforward. The Knowledge Nexus is open on Friday and Saturday, and it's somewhat similar in that it again has no heroes and relies on research. However, research bonuses provide things like squad capacity and, if you've unlocked the War Academy, even tier 11 troops. So even though you can't port over those true gold bonuses on troops, this is one of the dungeons where you can take advantage of troop tiers that you unlock through research. The Molten Fort is also open Friday and Saturday. It's just like the Crystal Cave, only instead of using Governor Charm power, it's based on Governor Gear power. Again, pretty straightforward. And lastly, we have the Radiant Spire, which is only open on Sundays. This is one where you can use power from all of the traditional sources, including more obscure sources like skins and VIP levels. Notably, Alliance occupation buildings and consumable bonuses are absent from the list. Before I share the tips with you about how to progress the most using your current account investments, there are a couple points I think are being overlooked that impact the meta of Kingshot investment. Firstly, this game mode is the very first time in Kingshot that investments in battle stats have a direct return on investment associated with them if you are not a rally leader. Typically, a reasonably active free-to-play player can keep pace with all of the beasts and terrors as they are introduced to the game. And if you follow my guides on Eternity's Reach and Swordland Showdown, both linked below in the description, then you will see that you can get top rewards without needing that much battle stat investment. Meanwhile, the really big game events that require rallies, like Bear Hunt or Castle Battle, don't use your stats anyway unless you're the rally leader. To understand why, check out my video on the surprising ways that rallies actually work, linked below in the description. So all of this is to say that as a free-to-play player or low spender, historically, your battle stats hadn't really been able to directly link to an improvement in rewards that actually increase the tempo of your account and accelerate your growth, until now. With this new game mode, there is now a permanent increase in weekly income based on your progression that is largely tied to battle stats, so it requires us to therefore reflect on investment priorities. For Governor Gear and Charms, it doesn't really change that much since there are very few times where you will need to choose between these and other growth-oriented investment choices. Perhaps the net effect here is that the Artisan's vision has actually somehow become even more valuable. So if before I wasn't, in the words of one channel viewer, a certified Artisan Vision glazer, I suppose I am now. However, I'm actually more concerned with research and pets, since here there is a real trade-off in these two between growth investments and battle investments, which now impact growth via the Mystic Trials. And absent this linkage before, I propose a significant deprioritization of battle tech for free-to-play players and low spenders in my research prioritization guide, linked below in the description. And bluntly, I followed my own advice on this without any drawback until now. But if you look at my tower progression, well, one of these is not like the others. So now I need to understand the cost to this choice I've made. And if I assume I'm somewhere near the 50th rank based on some of my other towers, then that would instead put me somewhere near the end of stage 11, or about 17 or 18 levels higher than my current position. That basically equates to about 170 Mystic Crystals per week and a couple of trial chests. So given how much benefit I've received from all of the growth bonuses over my first 240 days of playing Kingshot, I feel like this is still a favorable trade-off. And with pets, I recently put some of the combat bonus pet abilities at lower priority for low spenders in my pet ability tier list linked below in the description. While again I followed my own advice there, I'm actually really only still 2 or 3 stages behind where I would expect to be if I invested differently. This is likely because pet stats are gained from levels and pet marks even if you prioritize certain growth pets higher than the combat counterparts. And since the tier list is really about using medallions to raise above level 4, I'm actually not missing out too much on the pet abilities anyway. So in general, I do still feel comfortable with the tier list, except one could argue maybe I'd call that C tier a C+, given now it actually does something more directly. So considering everything, I think my earlier advice still holds for now that free-to-play and low-spend players are better off deprioritizing battle investments. However, if the future of the game continues to include more such incentives, then we may need to revisit this again. And one last comment on the investment meta. We also see in this game mode that both the Colosseum and Radiant Spire each require 3 teams of heroes as you get deeper into those dungeons. This is now the second time players are rewarded explicitly for building a wider roster of heroes, the first being Tri-Alliance Clash, which was released about a month earlier. I think this is a good direction for the game's longevity overall, but it does provide some incentive to build outside your 3 core heroes. For now, I don't quite think there's enough meat on the bone yet to swing significant investment across 9 heroes instead of 3, but it might be worth giving some of your off heroes a few extra copies of purple or orange gear to set on them instead of consuming it immediately for gear advancement on your main 3 heroes. Again, this is just another space we'll need to watch together going forward. But enough about the big meta conversation. Let's get into some tactical tips to help you make the most in Mythic Trial out of the investments you already have. And as always, special thanks to my Sloth Squad channel members for supporting more great guides like this one. The ranks are growing, and I'd love to have you join at the link below. Tip number 1 is about troop formations. Do not select Quick Deploy and actually spend the time to adjust your formation. The game will default you to an even split of troops, but this is not in sync with the current game meta. Stronger expedition formations tend to lean heavily into infantry, and this mode is no exception. Instead of figuring out the exact ideal ratio for each dungeon yourself, The publisher's sister game has a similar feature implemented almost a year ago. So we have a few months of wisdom of the crowds to inform us what works best. For the Colosseum, you will want 50% infantry, 10% cavalry, and 40% archers. For the Forest of Life, you'll want 50%, 15%, and 35%. Crystal Cave is a 60-20-20 split. Knowledge Nexus is a 50-20-30 split. For Molten Fort, go for 60-15-25. And for Radiant Spire, go with 50-15-35. To be honest, I'm a bit skeptical of the precision to the nearest 5%, but at least in my own testing, I've confirmed that these are directionally accurate values. So try them out and make your account investments go further. For tip number 2, we're going to look specifically at the Colosseum and the Radiant Spire. As I've mentioned earlier, these both eventually grow to require 2 and then 3 teams. Because of this, you can do some additional tinkering with the formation. Conventional wisdom would be to put your main 3 heroes as your first team and rely on that team to do all the heavy lifting and clear the enemies. If your weaker 2 teams are able to help a little, then great, but your main team will do most of the work. And this is true enough that it works. However, let's look at the Colosseum formation we talked about. You have 10% cavalry and 40% infantry in that formation. And it sort of seems like a bit of a shame that your best cavalry hero is only providing stats to 10% of your army. So this tip is to actually switch out your strongest cavalry hero to another team and reverse the formation of the damage dealer troops. So as a result, you get a formation of 50% infantry, 40% cavalry, and 10% archers. Because all 3 of these formations count to your total pool of troops, it means your best cavalry hero is now able to modify the stats of 4 times as many cavalry troops as before. And in my own testing, I've been able to get quite a few levels further by switching after failing on the same stage repeatedly. So if you're stuck in either of these 2 dungeon types, try switching cavalry heroes and formations between your first and second marches to see if that helps you break through the current wall. Eventually though, no matter how much you optimize your formations, you'll hit a point in each dungeon that you can't seem to beat with your current account investment level. This is by design, and it is where tip number 3 comes in. Now you may be used to Conquest, where randomness plays some role in the outcome of the battle, but usually when you're outclassed, you sort of just have to wait to advance until you get later in the game. However, Expedition mode is very different. In a way you might have trouble fully appreciating if you aren't trying to test hero abilities and stats all the time to make YouTube videos. But let me assure you that there is a huge random variation to Expedition battle outcomes. For example, look at how different these 2 battle outcomes are, and they're both on the same stage 14-7 of the Forest of Life with the exact same troop setup, and it went from losing with the opponent keeping nearly half of their troops alive, to winning with almost a third of my troops left just seconds later. Now imagine we layer hero abilities in on top of that with all of their percent chances of occurring. So you can quickly see that you might be just a few lucky archer double attacks or a cavalry bypass away from advancing to the next round on a battle you otherwise would have lost. So my advice here is to exhaust your 5 challenge attempts every day for every dungeon, even if you lost all 5 the previous time. The randomness is so significant that you are potentially missing out on a permanent income boost if you don't. And even better, you can make use of the battle skip feature in the top right to save you time. Tip number 4 is about the shop. It will continue to grow to have new items added as your kingdom ages. You can easily plan out what to buy from looking at your weekly crystal income. The 2 most important items are likely to be the Mithril and Charm designs. If you're a free-to-play player or low spender, the Charm designs are likely to be a bottleneck in your progression before the Mithril. But if you're a significant spender looking at red gear advancement, then the Mithril will be your top choice. Either way, go for these 2 first. And don't worry about the Charm guides, as you'll have many more of them than designs as you get later in the game. True Gold Dust is also likely to be a bottleneck when you unlock the War Academy. Fortunately, by that point in the game, which will be over 200 days, you should have enough crystal income to pick up the Charm designs, Mithril, and some extra True Gold Dust as well. And the last tip is that you can use Mystic Trial as an information gathering tool for KVK matches. When your kingdom sends spies to your KvK opponent's kingdom to gather intel on who the powerful players are to look out for, there are ways that players can try to obscure their stats and power ratings. It also can be confusing because troop power can make up such a large share of specific players' power rating. However, giving the incentives of the permanent income boost and the inability to lower your stage cleared, you can use the leaderboard to quickly get a sense of which players on the server are the strongest or know how to play the game most effectively. And also, because there's a leaderboard for each individual stage, it allows you to look into who has the strongest governor gear, charms, or heroes by their respective dungeon leaderboards. And all of this information together can help you prepare for the eventual castle battle. To win the KvK prep stage though, you'll want to check out my Hall of Governors and KvK Mega Guide, also linked below in the description. Mystic Trial is a new game mode that's only been around for about a week by the time this video goes to publication. So let me know in the comments if you have other tips to share, or if different formations are working well for you. Be sure to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. Thanks again for watching, and happy gaming out there.